afternoon. My name is Tatsuya Terazawa, as you see, Chairman and CEO of the Institute of Energy Economics Japan. Before becoming the chair of this energy think tank, I had been working for the Japanese government, the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, which has responsibility over energy. Today, I would like to explain to you the seventh strategic energy plan, which was decided in February of this year. Um, we have this unique energy plan decided by the cabinet. Um, it's a long-term plan for the energy policy, roughly revised every 3 years. I don't find similar nation-based strategies in other countries, but this is uniquely Japanese. We want to plan everything. So probably for this energy, maybe I might be wrong. Maybe Switzerland. There's so many commonalities between Switzerland. So maybe you may have a similar kind of strategy, but it is the Japanese typical nature to have everything under plan. So this was decided in February 2025. This was the seventh one. The previous one was decided in October 2021. That was the sixth one. And it was right after the then Prime Minister Suga made the announcement of a pledge to realize carbon neutrality by 2050. So, following that announcement, this sixth plan, which was decided in October 2021, had a major focus on how to reduce CO2. Um, it was energy plan, but it was basically a plan to reduce CO2. Now, um, in the 3 years between the sixth plan and the seventh plan, many things happened, as you know. This 3 years and a half was so transformative in this energy sector. We had the invasion of Ukraine, which was certainly unexpected, and we faced a energy security challenge, Europe and Japan together. Um, when I was a child, I experienced the first oil crisis in 1973. But since then, we didn't really talk about energy crisis. But now with the Russian invasion, now energy security is back in the mind of many people. The second thing, following this invasion of Ukraine, we experienced energy crisis. We experienced the cost of energy skyrocketing, and together with inflation, now everywhere people are complaining about inflation. Even Japan. Japan had been struggling with deflation for more than 2 decades, and policymakers were making the claim we should fight deflation. But suddenly, experiencing inflation, people are complaining about inflation. So they should be celebrating that we finally got out of deflation. But it is the politics in every country. Inflation is politically very unpopular, and energy is criticized as one of the villain of causing this inflation. And the third, since 2007, Japan has been experiencing a decline in the demand for power. Energy efficiency, aging of a population, and hollowing out of our industry. So we were assuming in the sixth strategic energy plan that the demand for power would continue to decrease. Actually, we're expecting the power demand to decrease by 10% towards 2030. But now, data centers, AI, every time you look at the smartphone, you are consuming a lot of energy. You don't feel like consuming power, but you are consuming a lot of power. But it's not just AI, electrification. For example, the production of steel, uh, it used to be a blast furnace, but now many of the steel production is turning to electric arc, which consumes a lot of power. And also reshoring. It's not just President Trump. Japan is also engaged in reshoring, including big chip factories. They consume a lot of power. So these are the three things change, and these took place in the past 3 years. And in addition, for those living in Osaka, you may not have experienced this, but for those living in Tokyo, on March 22nd of 2022, the Tokyo region became very close to a blackout because of shortage of power. It was a very cold day for late March, and unfortunately, we had a mid-scale earthquake, not the great one, that disrupted some of the thermal power generation. And also, after years of market reform, liberalization, power companies had been stopping to invest in new capacity and retiring many less efficient thermal power. And finally, it was a very cloudy day. So lots of solar panels had been installed, especially after the Fukushima nuclear accident. But on that day, it was a cloudy day, so it was powerless. Uh, and the difference was so substantial. I will give you the figure. The March 22nd was the day in which we became very close to a blackout. 3 days later, March 25th, we had a very fine day. So maximum power generation was solar panels. The difference in the power generation for the Tokyo region, not Japan as a whole, was 13 gigawatts. So it's almost equivalent to 13 nuclear reactors between a cloudy day and a fine day. And this was 3 years ago. So this is the so-called intermittency or fluctuation of power generation caused by renewable energies. And this is something that we have to deal with. For those who are technical experts, this is something like common sense. But the power demand and supply has to maintain at the same level at any given second. So this challenge of fluctuation is becoming a major problem. So we used to talk about energy security as to ensure the supply of crude oil from Middle East. That was the traditional classical energy security, but now we have to think about the security of the power supply and demand. We spend more on power. We cannot live without power. But that stability of the power is becoming even more difficult. So these are the backgrounds against which we developed this seventh strategic energy plan. Compared with the sixth strategic energy plan, there are things unchanged. The pledge by the Japanese government to realize net zero by 2050, this is not changed. In spite of all those changes, it's not changed. The GHG, the greenhouse gas emissions plan is to be reduced by 60% by 2035 compared with 2013. By 2040, 73% reduction. This is no science. If you are a seventh grader, you get this GHG emission, you have 0, 2050, you draw a straight line, and blah, voila, you get this number. Politicians, policymakers come in, but the result is that people can only agree on straight lines. So this is no magic. There's nothing to support this, but this is a pledge. And the target year, since this is a new plan, it was 2030 in the sixth one, and now it's 2040. That's the target year for the seventh one. In Japan, S plus three has been the four pillars of our energy policy. What are those S plus three? S stands for safety, three E's, energy security, economics, and the environment. Um, People talk about the trilemma of energy. It stands for those three E's. As I said, for the sixth strategic energy plan, it was basically one E, environment. But now with all things happening, we are we are trying to satisfy these all three plus S, and S especially for nuclear. That's the reason why we have S, safety for nuclear. But among these three, probably energy security and economics have risen in importance compared with 3 years ago for the obvious reasons. So let me go into some of the six pillars, the substance of this strategic energy plan. The first is renewable energy. Certainly, we'll be pushing for renewable energies. Solar, yes, we'll be pushing. But the problem, to be candid, is that large-scale solar parks have been very unpopular with the local communities. Now we have to get the public acceptance from the local communities. I don't know the situation in Switzerland, but in my country, large-scale solar panels parks have been more difficult to construct. One of the hottest contested project is now being planned nearby Kushiro wetland, which is a national park for us. It is right outside of the national park, but very near. And so many people are arguing that this might be good for the planet, but this is totally bad for the Kushiro wetland. So same things are happening. Even if you don't have the national parks, people want to preserve their landscape and so on. So this public acceptance has been a major challenge for, especially for large-scale solar parks in Japan. There's a possibility that we have four islands. For those who may not be familiar, the northern island is Hokkaido. That is huge. by Japanese standards. And we have good ski resorts, not as good as the Swiss ski resorts, but my fellow Australian friends come to Japan for Hokkaido because they cannot afford to make a tour to Switzerland. They come to Hokkaido. So we have land in Hokkaido. So theoretically, we can utilize the land in Hokkaido for renewable energies. The problem is that they are far away from Tokyo or Osaka. So we have to construct long distance transmission lines, which could be very expensive. That's another problem. Solar panels, as I said, large scale solar panels parks will be very difficult. So what we will be pursuing will be more rooftop kind of solar PVs. But the problem with the conventional solar PVs is that they are heavy. They're not flexible. You can only put them on the roofs. But there are so many buildings nearby. If we can utilize the facades or walls or windows, theoretically we can expand the power generation through solar PVs. And that's the reason why we are developing perovskite PV, which is lighter and which is flexible. So theoretically, you can put those perovskite PVs everywhere, including on the rooftops of EVs vehicles. Um, Japan is surrounded by sea. That is the difference between Switzerland and Japan. Probably the only difference. And my British friends will say, "Oh, we are constructing offshore wind power generation offshore of UK. Why don't you do that?" The the problem in Japan is most of the sea goes deep right away. The North Sea are shallow, so you can have bottom fixed type wind power generation, which is easier. But in Japan, since most of the sea goes deep right away, we need to have floating type. And my friends in Italy would say, "Oh, it will be easy. Mediterranean Sea, we have floating type wind power generation. It's completely different. Japan, the current is very strong. Mediterranean, no current. No typhoons. So it's much more. Oh, really?
This is about, yeah. Please continue.
Oh, okay. There's another thing in common: the punctuality. So a few more
Yes,
minutes.
yes. Please.
Did I consume 12 minutes already?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm afraid.
just quickly. So nuclear is another challenge for us, and also fusion. Uh, and we have to expand the power capacity to deal with the increasing demand. And also, we should not forget the non-power sector, the hard to abate sectors. You cannot solve everything by solar PVs. You have to deal with the non-power sector, the hard to abate sectors, and that's where hydrogen or CCS carbon capture should play a role. And we have to look at the demand side. We have to enhance the energy efficiency of AI and energy efficiency by AI as well. We tend to talk about the supply side only, but we have to look at the demand side as well. And for carbon management, we will continue to have carbon. So we have to deal with carbon pricing. We have to have cross-border carbon credits. And finally, it should be CDR, sorry, carbon dioxide removal, because eventually we have to capture the CO2 in the atmosphere and maybe put it underground. So these are things we have to do. And as I stressed, and my colleague from Switzerland made it clear that there are so many commonalities, similarities between Switzerland and Japan. And this is energy is certainly one area of similarity. And we believe that Japan alone cannot deal with this challenge. And that's where we seek partnership. And Switzerland is the greatest partner for us in that regard. Already described, we have the technology innovation and the power of the finance. But ultimately, I think it is the stability of the society and policy. Without the support from the public, you cannot introduce various policies. And this is becoming very precious these days. Only a few countries can enjoy the stability in the policy and society. And that's where I think Switzerland and Japan have a similarity. And that's the reason why we have responsibility to deal with this challenge, not just for us, but for the planet. Thank you very much.